CarMax just sent a shockwave through the entire auto industry when no one saw it coming. For years, CarMax has been the safe, predictable giant of the used car world, a company that stayed in its lane, bought cars, sold cars, and quietly dominated the market. But suddenly, that quiet giant just made a move so disruptive, so unexpected, that dealers, automakers, and even Wall Street analysts are scrambling to understand what happens next. The craziest part? This shock didn't come from some new car model, some surprise earnings report, or some flashy marketing stunt. No, CarMax just flipped the entire business model of the used car market upside down. And what they announced is about to hurt dealerships, slash vehicle values, and completely change how Americans buy cars forever. Because CarMax just revealed a strategy that aggressively undercuts traditional dealers, blindsides online competitors, and forces automakers into a corner they never expected. And the timing could not be more brutal. Just as the used car market is weakening, interest rates are squeezing buyers, and inventories are piling up in every direction. Dealers are already panicking because what CarMax is doing sets off a chain reaction. Lower trade-in values, collapsing used car prices, and a flood of vehicles hitting the market at once. Buyers are confused, sellers are furious, and even competing executives are admitting privately that they didn't believe CarMax would ever dare to pull something like this off. But here's where things take a darker turn. CarMax didn't just shock the market, they exposed its biggest weakness, a weakness the industry hoped consumers would never notice. And once this becomes mainstream, it could take down some of the biggest used car players in the country. And it all starts with the one thing every dealership tries to hide: the real value of your car. See, for years, dealerships relied on complicated appraisal systems, wildly fluctuating offers, and confusing fees to squeeze as much profit as possible from each trade-in. Buyers never knew if they were getting a good deal, sellers never knew if they were being ripped off. The entire system was built on uncertainty, but CarMax just shattered that system by doing the unthinkable, making every competitor's trade-in offer completely irrelevant. CarMax didn't just tweak its pricing system, it launched a new nationwide valuation model that updates in real time, uses live market data, and delivers offers that are often thousands of dollars higher than what traditional dealerships are willing to pay. And here's the part that's setting the industry on fire. These offers are locked in, guaranteed, and completely transparent. No hidden fees, no awkward negotiations, no "let me check with my manager." CarMax just put a giant spotlight on how inconsistent and sometimes outright manipulative the rest of the industry has been for decades, and dealers are furious. Some are calling it market suicide, others are calling it predatory, but the truth is simple: CarMax is forcing everyone else to compete in a game they never wanted to play, a game where consumers finally know the real value of their vehicles. And that terrifies the old guard, because once people realize they can get a firm, algorithm-backed offer from CarMax in minutes, why would they ever waste an entire afternoon arguing with a dealership over a trade-in value that magically changes every 20 minutes? This single move strips dealerships of one of their biggest profit centers, and they know it. But CarMax didn't stop there. They doubled down by rolling out a new inventory strategy that shakes the entire pricing structure of the used car market. Instead of slowly adjusting prices like traditional dealers, CarMax is now shifting prices daily, reacting instantly to demand shocks, seasonal trends, and market slowdowns. That means a car listed at $27,000 yesterday might be $25,900 today, and competitors simply cannot keep up with this pace. This is what's sending shockwaves across the industry. CarMax is essentially engineering a controlled price crash, and every dealership in America is being dragged into it whether they like it or not. Lower prices at CarMax force lower prices everywhere else, and in a market already drowning in supply, that's a financial nightmare for thousands of used car lots. And guess what? Investors are suddenly paying attention because CarMax's aggressive strategy exposes a truth nobody in the industry wants to admit. The used car bubble didn't just pop, it exploded. Demand is softening, financing is painful, repossessions are rising, and millions of cars are about to flood the market as leases mature all at once. CarMax saw this coming long before anyone else, and now they're positioning themselves to dominate the coming downturn. But the real jaw-dropper is what CarMax is doing behind the scenes, something that could make them not just a used car retailer, but the most powerful data company in the entire auto sector. Because while dealers are panicking about prices, CarMax is quietly gathering the one resource more valuable than inventory, profit margins, or even sales volume. Behavioral data on every buyer and seller in America. CarMax now tracks how long people browse certain cars, what features they hesitate on, which price drops trigger immediate inquiries, and even the exact moment a buyer decides to walk away. This isn't just customer data, it's a real-time psychological map of the entire used car market. And while competitors are still guessing, adjusting prices manually, or relying on outdated sales reports, CarMax is shaping its decisions with machine-level precision. In the auto industry, data like this is a superpower. It predicts when truck buyers are about to slow down. It reveals when SUVs are oversupplied before anyone else notices. It spots regional trends, a sudden drop in sedan demand here, a surge in hybrid interest there, long before the market reacts. CarMax is no longer just selling cars, it's forecasting the entire market like a weather system. And that's what scares everyone from local dealers all the way up to the biggest automakers. Because if CarMax becomes the gatekeeper of used car pricing, then every dealer is suddenly at the mercy of their algorithms. When CarMax cuts prices, others must follow. When CarMax raises trade-in values, others lose business. When CarMax tightens valuations during a downturn, smaller dealerships crumble under the pressure. It's a domino effect, and CarMax is setting the pattern. Meanwhile, automakers are watching this play out with growing anxiety. They depend heavily on healthy used car prices to keep new car sales stable. When used cars fall too far, too fast, leasing becomes riskier, residual values collapse, and suddenly new cars look overpriced. A single large player controlling the pulse of the used market can destabilize the entire ecosystem, and CarMax is inching dangerously close to that role. And then comes the jaw-dropping twist. CarMax is also shifting its business model towards something that looks a lot like a subscription-based ecosystem. Not a subscription for a car, but a subscription for data access, dealer tools, valuation insights, and predictive analytics. Imagine hundreds of smaller dealerships quietly relying on CarMax's back-end pricing intelligence just to stay in business. That would give CarMax leverage no retailer has ever held before. This is why industry insiders are whispering about a future where CarMax isn't just a retailer. It becomes the Amazon Web Services of the auto market, the unseen engine powering thousands of dealerships while controlling the flow of information behind the curtain. But there's another angle, a move even more disruptive. And this is where things get explosive, because while everyone's focused on trade-ins and pricing systems, CarMax has been quietly testing a new initiative that threatens online competitors like Carvana, Vroom, and Shift in the most brutal way possible. It's something bold, risky, and practically guaranteed to trigger another wave of panic across the industry. And the craziest part is that CarMax hasn't even officially announced it yet. Data at a scale no other auto retailer can even dream of. Every appraisal request, every trade-in attempt, every online valuation, every rejected offer, all of it is feeding a data engine that's growing more powerful by the day. CarMax isn't just watching the market, they're predicting it with terrifying accuracy. Because here's the hidden truth, CarMax now sees exactly where prices are heading before the rest of the industry does. They know which models are about to tank, which trims are about to spike, and which vehicles are becoming financial landmines for dealerships still buying old inventory at last year's inflated prices. That means while other dealers are drowning under collapsing margins, CarMax is quietly stocking the right cars at the right time for the right price, all powered by an algorithm no traditional dealer can outrun. And this is where things get even more dangerous. CarMax isn't just using that data to buy smarter, they're using it to sell faster. They're shifting cars between states based on micro trends, student populations, seasonal moves, job shifts, tax refunds, even local repo surges. They're moving inventory like a logistics company, not a dealership, and that alone puts them miles ahead of everyone still relying on gut instinct and outdated software. No wonder dealers are calling this the most disruptive move since Carvana first arrived on the scene. But unlike Carvana, CarMax isn't burning billions. They're not experimenting, they're executing. With decades of experience, nationwide infrastructure, and a customer base in the millions. But all of this leads to the part the industry fears most. CarMax is now in a position to dictate the national floor price for used vehicles. If CarMax lowers prices, everyone else is forced to follow. If CarMax raises trade-in values, every dealer's margins shrink. CarMax now holds holds a lever that controls the entire mid-tier used car economy, and they're pulling it harder than ever before. And as this power shift intensifies, automakers are starting to feel the pressure too, because when used car prices fall, new car sales suffer, lease values collapse, residual forecasts break, incentives spike. Suddenly, automakers are staring at a financial mess triggered not by interest rates, not by production issues, but by a used car giant rewriting the rules of the game. And the wildest part, we haven't even talked about the move CarMax is preparing next. The one insiders claim could completely erase the traditional dealership model over the next decade. A strategy so bold, so disruptive that it has franchise dealers calling emergency meetings, hiring consultants, and even lobbying lawmakers to stop what's coming. Because CarMax is preparing to launch the one thing no dealership in America has ever had at this scale: real-time demand intelligence on millions of buyers. See, every time someone checks a CarMax offer, searches for a vehicle, saves a listing, or even hovers over a specific model for more than a few seconds, CarMax records it. Not in a creepy way, but in a way that gives them an unmatched look into what the market truly wants right now. Dealers rely on outdated auction data. Automakers rely on quarterly reports. Online competitors rely on estimates. CarMax, they're reading the market like a live heartbeat monitor. This allows CarMax to do something the rest of the industry can't even dream of: predict price collapses before they happen and position inventory ahead of the crash. That means CarMax can move cars out of markets where values are about to fall, shift inventory into cities where prices will surge, and unload slow-selling models before they become dead weight. It's strategic, ruthless, and honestly, brilliant. And guess who's terrified? Three groups. 1. Traditional dealerships, because they can't adjust fast enough. 2. Online retailers, because CarMax just out-algorithmed them. 3. Automakers, because this level of pricing transparency exposes something they desperately try to hide: how weak new car demand really is. CarMax's data is showing something deeply uncomfortable. Buyers are maxed out, interest rates crushed affordability, and used car shoppers are shifting heavily toward cheaper segments. That means expensive new cars are sitting and sitting and sitting. And as new car inventory piles up, used car values drop even faster. CarMax is using that information like a weapon. They're slashing prices on models they know are about to nosedive. They're offering higher trade-ins on vehicles they know will stay hot. And they're positioning themselves to dominate the market when the next wave of price cuts hits dealerships nationwide. But here's the twist no one saw coming. CarMax isn't just reacting to the market, they're shaping it. Their new pricing algorithm is so influential, so widely watched, that dealers are quietly adjusting their own prices based on CarMax's daily updates. CarMax has essentially become the price anchor of the entire used car market, and that's when the real shock hits. CarMax is no longer just a retailer. CarMax is becoming the central bank of the used car economy. Their pricing influences the market, their data directs the market, and their decisions reshape the market. But the biggest surprise, CarMax just unveiled a plan, quietly, almost secretly, that could push them into a position no used car company has ever held before. A move that could crush smaller dealers, pressure automakers into partnership, and give CarMax access to a revenue stream worth billions. Because for the first time ever, CarMax is preparing to data at a scale the industry has never seen before. Every appraisal, every offer, every price adjustment, every sale, it's all feeding into a massive, constantly learning data engine. This isn't just about selling cars. This is about owning the information that decides what every used car in America is worth. And that gives CarMax a level of power that dealerships, automakers, and even financial institutions are suddenly very uncomfortable with. Think about it. CarMax now knows which models are dropping in value fastest, which regions are seeing demand dry up, which cars are about to flood the market, and even which customers are most likely to sell in the next 90 days. This is the kind of intelligence automakers wish they had. This is the kind of data banks rely on. This is the kind of insight online competitors like Carvana would kill for. And CarMax is using it like a weapon, because while the industry is still reacting to last month's numbers, CarMax is already adjusting for what's coming next. That's why they can drop prices before anyone else. That's why they can offer higher trade-ins without destroying their margins. And that's why their competitors are panicking. They're being outmaneuvered by a company that simply knows more than they do. Dealers are now admitting privately that CarMax's pricing engine is rewriting the rules. Some are even warning their staff that if CarMax prices go down, ours must go down too. That's the level of influence we're talking about. And the moment one giant shifts prices, everyone else is forced to follow or risk being left with cars nobody wants to buy. But the real shocker, the part no one in the industry wants to talk about, is what CarMax just exposed about the used car market's health. Their aggressive price cuts and rapid adjustments are revealing that consumer demand is far weaker than official reports suggest. Cars that would have sold instantly in 2021 are now sitting for 60, 90, even 120 days. High mileage vehicles are backing up on lots. Luxury models are tanking in value. EVs, some are dropping faster than dealers can rewrite the price tags. And CarMax is essentially saying, fine, if the market is collapsing, we'll collapse it on our terms. They're preparing for a storm, a big one, and instead of resisting it, they're positioning themselves to be the only company strong enough to survive the coming wave of price crashes, repossessions, and distressed sales. But here's where things get really interesting. CarMax's strategy isn't just hurting dealers, it's indirectly putting pressure on the automakers themselves. Because when used car prices fall this quickly, new car values take a hit, leasing becomes riskier, residuals fall, automakers are forced to offer bigger incentives, and suddenly, companies like Ford, GM, Toyota, and Hyundai are staring at an uncomfortable reality. CarMax's moves could trigger a full-scale price war, and that's exactly what industry insiders fear. Because a price war doesn't just hurt profits, it destroys them. Dealers lose margins, automakers lose revenue, investors lose confidence. But CarMax, they thrive in chaos. Lower prices mean more volume. More volume means more data, and more data means even more control. And now there's a new twist developing, something analysts have barely started to whisper about. A move that, if CarMax actually goes through with it, will completely change how Americans buy cars, finance cars, and even value cars. A move so bold that it threatens to make traditional dealerships data. More data than any dealership group, auction network, or even some automakers currently possess. And this is the part nobody saw coming. While the industry focused on sales numbers, CarMax built a massive AI-driven data engine that tracks nearly every variable affecting the used car market. Depreciation curves, regional demand spikes, loan performance, auction volatility, insurance payouts, even trending consumer search behavior. They're not just watching the market, they're predicting it. And that gives them a level of power no traditional dealership has ever had. Imagine knowing exactly when SUVs in the Midwest are about to drop in value, or which sedans in California are about to surge in demand, or when a wave of repossessions will hit the Southeast and flood auctions with discounted inventory. With this data machine, CarMax can buy smarter, price faster, and sell before competitors even realize what's happening. And here's the shocker, automakers are now quietly studying CarMax's system, because for the first time ever, a used car retailer has better real-time visibility into the market than the companies that build the cars. That is stunning and deeply embarrassing for legacy automakers who still rely on outdated forecasting models that can be months behind reality. But the industry is even more rattled by what CarMax just revealed about consumer behavior. Their internal data shows something the market hoped wasn't true. Buyers are delaying purchases longer than anyone predicted. They're holding on to old cars, skipping dealership visits, refinancing instead of trading in. And when they finally decide to buy, they're laser focused on value, not loyalty. Brand loyalty is collapsing, dealership loyalty is gone, and consumers are hunting for the best deal with zero emotional attachment. CarMax was the first to detect this shift, and now they're positioning themselves as the default place to buy a car when the old dealership model finally crumbles under its own weight. No haggling, no games, no backroom manager talk, just a clean, predictable buying experience that the next generation of buyers prefers. But here's where this gets even more dramatic. CarMax's shock move is triggering a domino effect across the entire industry. Online car retailers like Carvana and Vroom, already struggling, now face a giant with deeper pockets, stronger branding, and a more stable financial foundation. And traditional dealerships, they're getting squeezed from both sides. Lower trade-in profits, lower retail margins, higher inventory costs, and a consumer base that's losing patience with outdated dealership tactics. Some dealership groups are already warning their shareholders. Others are scrambling to copy CarMax's pricing model. But most, they're stuck. trapped in a system that wasn't built for real-time pricing, wasn't built for transparency, and definitely wasn't built to compete against a data-driven giant that can move faster than anyone else. And now, insiders are whispering something even more alarming. CarMax's next move might be its biggest yet. They're preparing to enter a segment of the market that dealerships have guarded fiercely for decades. A segment so profitable, so sensitive, that disrupting it could permanently reshape the entire auto industry. Because CarMax is now gearing up to CarMax is quietly gathering something far more valuable than cars. Real-time behavioral data on millions of buyers and sellers. Every appraisal request, every browsing pattern, every price drop reaction. They're feeding it all into a massive data engine. And that engine is giving CarMax something no competitor in the used car world has ever possessed. The ability to predict market swings before they happen. Think about the power of that. While dealerships are guessing what cars will sell next month, CarMax already knows. While competitors are stuck with overpriced inventory, CarMax is unloading vehicles days before the market turns. They're not just reacting to the used car market anymore, they're steering it. And here's where things get even more shocking. Insiders say CarMax is preparing to leverage this data to become the pricing oracle of the entire auto industry. Imagine a future where automakers, banks, insurance companies, and even rental fleets depend on CarMax's data to price their vehicles. That would make CarMax not just a retailer, but a gatekeeper, a power broker, a company with influence bigger than many automakers themselves. And dealerships know exactly what that means. Less control, less pricing power, and fewer ways to hide behind outdated negotiation tactics. No wonder industry groups are already whispering about regulation, anti-competitive behavior, and even lawsuits. The fear is real, because CarMax just opened a door the industry hoped would stay shut forever, the door to full pricing transparency. But it doesn't stop there. CarMax is now testing a new model that could wipe out entire categories of dealerships overnight. A model where customers can sell their car, buy a new one, get financing, check insurance, and schedule delivery, all without stepping foot in a store. A closed-loop, end-to-end ecosystem that gives CarMax total control over the customer journey. And once people realize they can skip hours of dealership pressure, the old system collapses. Traditional dealers are sounding the alarm. They're warning about shrinking margins, falling foot traffic, and customers disappearing into CarMax's digital ecosystem, and their fear is justified, because CarMax is doing something no other used car giant has managed to pull off, combining the scale of a nationwide retailer with the speed of a tech startup.